of my favorite things to do.
Oh, wait a minute. So you live in like a condo or something where you can walk right to your shop or right to your coffee shops and stores?
Yeah, I have a little brick bungalow in a cute little area in Denver, and yeah, I can walk to yoga and walk to a coffee shop. So it's pretty much heaven for me. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Do you live by yourself?
No, my boyfriend lives here. He actually just moved in beginning of April.
Like right before COVID happened.
Yeah. So we quarantined together.
So you guys are like, all right, yeah, let's move in. And now we have to hang out with each other 24/7. So we're going to learn a lot.
Yeah, it was kind of perfect though, because we wanted to totally redo the house. So we did that. We didn't feel like we were like missing out on anything in the outside world. So we just did that for like 6 weeks.
Totally. I love your earrings, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
They remind me of something that my wife would wear, like a local artist made them. And
Mm-hmm. I don't even know I forget where I got them, but they're one of my favorites.
So, long story short here, before we get started, my father-in-law is not in the best shape. So, but a huge tree fell in his house this morning, not on it, but like in the backyard. So I've been cutting it all morning. And I literally like rushed home, showered, and like sat down and made a quick shake. And I'm like ready to do it.
Wow.
So,
he's okay though?
Oh yeah, he's fine. I just mean like he's not able to like cut a tree. You know what I mean? And
gotcha.
and so that's why I'm like sipping on this right now. I don't mean to be rude if you think that.
No, definitely don't.
All right, cool. So I think did you get a chance to listen to any of my episodes by any chance?
No, I probably should have done that, but I didn't.
No, it's totally fine. I always ask that because when people do, they're like prepared for I have like the two same questions I ask in the beginning and the end. So you're not. So I love it. It's always best when they're not prepared. So first off, Erin, thanks. I'm going to do the intro separately. Okay. And I think I'm going to talk a lot about like mindfulness-based stress reduction, right? Because you taught a class on that, right?
Yeah. I basically led a group. There's an online class and I led a group here through that class.
Yeah. And you also went through it yourself.
Went through it myself. Yeah. Twice. Okay. So mindfulness is definitely a good topic for me. And it's just like how it's impacted my life and the direction of my life.
I love it. And that's what we'll talk about then. I actually never, MBSR has never even come up in the 66 episodes that I've had.
Really?
Yeah. They just, most of these people are like, they're either they're meditation teachers or yoga teachers. They haven't, and for, for a long time. So they haven't, for some reason, just never came up, but I've done a lot of research on it and looked at it. So I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Yeah. Cool.
So, okay. Erin, thank you again for coming on. And I'm going to start with a question that I ask everybody that first comes on the Mindful Impact podcast. Mm-hmm. When you wake up in the morning today, Erin, not 10 years ago, but today in your life, what makes your heart sing every single morning? Like the first thing you think of, like that it's going to be your day. What makes it just jump out of your chest, your heart?
Mm. Well, the first kind of funny thing that comes to mind is my dad used to always tell me that every morning when you wake up, think it's another beautiful day in paradise. So I'll say that, like, as soon as my boyfriend wakes up, I'll just say, it's another beautiful day in paradise. And he just kind of rolls his eyes at me, laugh about it. But yeah, I think the thing that makes my heart sing is just kind of following my own path in life and not feeling like I'm stuck, feeling like I'm actually going in a direction that makes me feel really fulfilled. And so every day feels like something new and exciting to me.
I love that. There's a couple parts in that I want to ask you about. So the first thing is hilarious is your boyfriend, rolling his eyes at something like that. Right. But that's like powerful. And it's so cool that your dad like gave you that. Where does that come from? Did he always do kind of like mantras like that with you? Or is it just that one thing that stuck, what?
So I used to think he was just like a big cheese ball. He would have like these cheesy little sayings, and he always had self-help tapes on in the car. And And I didn't really totally get it. I was too young to really understand. And so, yeah, I mean, he was an entrepreneur. He's really focused on business and trying to live the best life that he can. So he died young. He died at 58, and we had a really amazing connection before that happened. Happy to talk about that a little bit. It's kind of changed the direction of my life. But yeah, I think he's taught me kind of indirectly throughout his life, and then more directly right before he passed away, like passed along a lot of this wisdom.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm sorry of his passing, of course, but that's so amazing that, when you say that, I thought about, like, instantly, of course, thought about my kids and how cheesy they're going to think I am, because I'm like all about mindfulness and meditation and self-help and, like, being the best. So they're gonna be like, that's great. So yeah, let's talk about that. In life, and I've said this a few times in the podcast, I always think that there's these, like, major or traumatic experiences that shift us. I mean, that's just, of course, what happens, but there's a couple different ways, and I want to set it up. Like, for example, and I never used this analogy before, and then I'll let you go. I'll ask the question, but if you have a parent that's an alcoholic, right? And then they have two kids, and the one kid's in jail, and somebody interviews him and said, "Hey, how'd you end up in jail? Like, what happened?" "Oh, my dad was an alcoholic. So of course I was an alcoholic, and I was bad and got in trouble, and I ended up in jail." And then his brother is a very successful, like, an entrepreneur. He loves his family. His family's like, they're just very tight. He's got kids, and they're like, "Oh man, how'd that happen? Your dad was an alcoholic." And he says, "Well, of course, like, I saw the destruction my dad created being an alcoholic. I didn't want to go that route. So I did everything possible to not be like that."
Yeah.
So it depends on so with your father passing, and of course that's totally different, but that, relates as far as the concept. What happened? How were you before that? And how did it change you?
Yeah. I think going into it with my relationship with him, there was a lot of resentment and challenge with our relationship, mainly because he was very distant and focused on his businesses, and my brother and I both felt like we weren't important in his life, and so that was challenging growing up. And when he got sick, I originally was really focused on, like, everything I was going to miss out on. I was going to miss out on having a dad and getting married and having him there, and I was kind of like clinging to we gotta keep him here, and I gotta stay strong and gotta help him stay strong. And so there's a lot of, like, fear-based thinking. I think that is probably a theme that in my life, when you talk about before and after, that was a theme. And then I got this really awesome advice from my dad. Had prostate cancer, and this prostate cancer doctor said, "You're not helping your dad with your fake strength." And he said, "Just be raw with him, and that's what's going to help him the most." So we just were really raw with each other, and we worked through a lot of our history and came to a really awesome place, and we're vulnerable. And I just had never experienced, like, that type of human connection, and it was beautiful. And he just helped me realize, like, hey, life can be really scary, and being vulnerable is really scary. But following your dreams and your curiosities, like, that's what makes life worth living. And that's the big change after he died. Like, first of all, I feel like he's with me every day of my life. I realize now, like, that experience brought us so much closer. And then I've taken so many risks since then. So I'm sad that he's not physically here, but I'm mostly grateful for the whole experience.
Yeah, that's man, I don't even know how to react to that. It's such a profound, beautiful, unfortunate, sad, happy. It's like all these emotions kind of mixed in together, right? It's like, it's really, wow. I mean, I'm listening to it, like, that just makes so much I'm like mind blown, right? You know what I mean? Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that, Erin. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's, and you said I started taking more risks and
Yeah.
being a little, being more, less constricted, more open, right? With
Hmm.
things and probably having even a different viewpoint because, uh, going back to what you said about, my dad seemed distant because he was always working on his business.
Hmm.
When I hear that, I think, man, I work hard on my business. Eh,
Hmm.
I hope my kids know that I'm not doing it to be selfish. I'm doing it because I want a good life for them.
Yeah.
I want to be able to provide them with like amazing opportunities.
Yeah.
Um, and that it really makes me think. And that's probably where your dad was coming from too, right? I'm sure you guys talked about that.
Yeah. There's a lot of that for him. And yeah, I mean, I think it's hard, and it takes mindfulness and awareness to realize that, like, look at other people's experiences, like your kids, and how might they experience it. And I think just having that level of awareness and communication with kids early on. I don't have kids. I would like to have kids one day, but
Yeah.
I would imagine having that conversation with them early on, and taking them along that journey,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not just doing it in silence. I think that probably makes all the difference.
100%. It's great advice.
Mhm.
Erin, you, uh, how's your meditation practice look these days? What's going on there?
Yeah. So I typically meditate once a day. Um, right now it's in the morning, and I'm doing a Tony Robbins meditation that I really like.
What
I
is
love
it?
Tony Robbins.
I love Tony Robbins too, of course. I mean, like he
Yeah.
changed me. So
Yeah.
what is it?
It's the one he does his morning ritual. So it's like there's a breathing exercise at the beginning, and in between each breathing exercise, it's basically gratitude in between each thing, and then you ask for healing in certain areas of your life, and then you focus on your goals, like what you want to manifest in your life. So it's just I think it's like 10 minutes,
Yeah.
but
It's
I've
like an
been
intention setting meditation in the mornings, right?
in,
Kind of
in
gratitude, intention.
gratitude. Yeah, just kind of helps you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the two things: gratitude, and it helps you just like expand your awareness away from like the little narrow focus and or thing that you're stressed out about. You're like, oh, okay, life is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I
Good
love
way to
that.
start
Do you
the day.
do it like first thing in the morning?
That's what I've been doing. Yeah, I've found that with my meditation practice, it's been consistent over the last, like, let's see, 3 years, I guess. Um, but it won't be like the same time every day, and it doesn't look the same. And I did kind of judge myself a little bit through the process, like I should be sitting for 20 minutes every morning at the same time, and like, well, it's not really what it looks like for me, so that's okay.
Yeah, that's an important part to like a milestone to get to, right? Is that like it's okay. That's not what it looks like for me right now. I'm sitting and
Yeah.
like I need to stop beating myself up about things because I've gone through that, so I get it.
Yeah.
Mindfulness based stress reduction. You've taken a couple class courses on that.
Uh-huh.
I before we got on the podcast for people listening, I was talking to Erin about how it's never really come up and here yet, and that's why I was so excited to have her on and talk to us. And you've also led a group through the mindfulness-based stress reduction course.
Yeah.
So let's, in a nutshell, what is it? And then let's dive into the benefits and what you've learned and everything.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so I found it actually when I was researching different ways to fight cancer. So this is when my mom is actually diagnosed with cancer also. And so when I was doing research for her, I was looking into like the research behind lifestyle factors to help fight cancer. And I found that, mindset and meditation and stress reduction was one category. So I started doing research, and I'm like, is there actually, my background's biomedical engineering. So I go to PubMed pretty regularly, like feel really comfortable with it. So I'm like, I wonder if I go to PubMed and like look for studies, is there anything that comes up around meditation?
PubMed is a website. that?
It has all research articles.
Okay. All right.
So it's like
I'm not
peer
familiar.
reviewed. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's peer reviewed research articles. It's not all peer reviewed on PubMed, but anyway, a bunch of journals publish their articles on PubMed.
Okay, cool. Keep going, sir.
So anyway, I was looking for research articles, found this thing called mindfulness-based stress reduction. And that was really the only program that had been researched really thoroughly, and definitely linked to reducing stress. And there's some other things that were interesting. So I was like, I wonder what this is, looked into it. Basically, it's a program out of University of Massachusetts by John Kabat-Zinn. He put it together. The components of it have been around forever in the meditation mindfulness community and Buddhism, but he put together this 8-week structure, and it's really actionable, which I like. And I think it's really good for people that are new to meditation, because meditation can seem kind of like a little fluffy and like, what is it actually doing? And so it walks you through different kind of challenges that we all experience in life, and each week is focused on something different. So there might be something on like dealing with difficult emotions. It was 1 week. I think the first week is just on presence, how to get present. And then you have meditations to do each week, and then you have like a specific tool that you can use when you're just like out in the world and not sitting on a meditation cushion, because that's why we do all this, right? Is to use it when we're interacting in the world, not to just reach this perfect state of bliss while we're sitting by ourselves.
100%. So how do we get present?
So one thing that I love is finding an anchor, which is like, an anchor is one of your senses. So for me, an anchor is sound. So if I focus on the sounds, especially birds chirping, whatever, I don't know what it is, but when I hear birds chirping, I'm like immediately sucked back into the present moment. So that's like an anchor. A lot of people teach breath as your anchor. So like really feeling your breath through your nose when you breathe in, or feeling your chest rise up and down. So you can use that if you're, triggered out, in a meeting or something where you're starting to tense up. You can use your anchor and kind of get yourself present again and grounded again.
Yeah, it's almost like a reset, like a pattern interrupt into some. Yeah, that's, it's funny when I meditate outside and I hear birds chirping, like I instantly become like zenful or whatever the word is, right? Yeah. Like I'm like, peace and presence. So that makes total sense. And another thing that comes to mind when you say that, Erin, is when I'm laying down outside, I have these like big trees in my backyard. And when I'm able to look up at them and see them like kind of move in the wind a little bit, like that just makes me very present too. So I've never actually noticed what until you just said that these things do that for me. That's really cool. That's really cool.
I actually looked into it because I had this like theory that we use a different part of our brain when we're kind of using in the sensory part of our brain. Like I thought maybe the thinking part is different from the sensory part, and just clarified that. I looked it up and it is different. So when we're kind of in like ruminating thoughts or planning or stressing, that's a different part of our brain than when we're tapped into our senses. So it is a reset. Like we switch to a different part of our brain. Really? So we kind of can get out of that thought pattern and get more present. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is neat. Yeah. So in the mindfulness-based stress reduction, I like you said at the beginning, it has a lot of intertwinings and weavings of probably some TM in there, teachings, transcendental meditation, Buddhism, mindfulness, all kind of wrapped into a course that he created. And John Kabat-Zinn, which for people listening is like, one of the top 10 innovators of mindfulness and meditation and in the Western culture, right? You would say? Yeah. So what would it be like one or two huge like aha takeaways when you took both of these courses that you went through?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think for sure in my dealing with anxiety, like that has been a challenge for me, and it really helped with that. That was the biggest thing. And there's a lot of different like tools that I learned that helped with that. The anchoring really helped.
Yeah.
So getting out of those kind of ruminating thoughts. And then there's tons of things, but one thing that stands out is Eckhart Tolle. I really like his talks on fear and overwhelm. And that's kind of what he specializes in, I think, and in getting present. And he talks about how when we're overwhelmed, we're either living in the future or we're living in the past. We're not present. And there's two things that he teaches to help us get present. So the one that's specific on getting present when you're overwhelmed is for me, when I'm overwhelmed. So say I have this big project that I need to do for work, and it's new and I don't really know exactly what I'm doing, and there's some pressure around it and expectations. I'm thinking of one that was fairly recent. I was looking at the whole project like, oh my gosh, this is so much work and already feeling overwhelmed. But I luckily just been reminded of that practice. And he says, if you focus on the specific thing that you're doing, like I needed to create a slide deck. So if I just focused on creating the one slide that was in front of me, like that's not overwhelming or stressful. I do that one and then I focus on doing the next one and then the next one. And I know where I'm going. So I'm still like achieving something, but I don't need to be constantly like looking at the big picture of it. I can see that, okay, that's what I need to get to. Now let me focus on this thing right in front of me. So that was one tool that project, it went by. I learned a ton. It was fun. I was not stressed really at all with it. And it went really well. So that was amazing.
Yeah. This is my true belief and actually my experience, right? So if I wasn't meditating and you told me this, like you're just, exactly how, what to do and how to do that, yeah. I'd say, oh, it sounds great. And then the unfortunate part is that I wouldn't be able to keep myself in that present mindset. And I'd still keep getting those stressors and the anxiety about the finish line. Oh my God. And because, if you don't have that meditation practice ritual daily, pretty much, it's really difficult to cultivate what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. It just is. Like it's almost impossible to cultivate that. Presence and true presence, true blissful feeling, and drop the, lower that anxiety and stress that you're talking about. So that was awesome. That was awesome because I know that I just listening to you, I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what we're talking about. I've seen this happen to me. I've seen like that.
That's so common. Yeah, we don't really talk about it. We talk about like the achievement stuff, and our goals, but we don't talk about the nights where we're freaking out about it and like worried it's all gonna fail and we're gonna be broke and homeless. Like that's not what, that's not like a welcoming thing that people are like, oh, tell me about all your fears. It's just like the struggles that we have, and this gives us tools to help. And also that's why you'd mentioned I led a group through all this. That's why I wanted to do that, because I wanted to create a space where we could talk about these things and talk about what's worked for us. So that was a really rewarding experience for me.
Yeah. How many people were in that group?
It was a small group of like, I think 8 of us consistently, kind of people cycling in and out, but it was just in my home and I just walked people through.
And the reason I asked that is because, I think if a small group like that, it just creates so much more impact, right? Because you're able to give a lot more attention to each person.
For sure.
So again, for people listening, if you ever wanted to create something or do something, you don't need to immediately think, oh my God, I need 250 people to make this impactful, right? One of the most rewarding things you just said that you've done and been through is a group of 8 people that you led.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah, I've done online courses with 1,000 people, and this is way more fulfilling to do with 8 people. It's funny.
Yeah, and you could have been like, oh man, I don't know if your goal was to get 20 or 30, or you didn't even care if it was one or yeah. But it's
Yeah.
a lot of us, a lot of people like, oh man, there's 8. I wish I was going for 25. I don't even know if I should do this anymore. Should I do it? Oh, they're gonna hate it. They're gonna hate it. Then they're gonna not want to talk to me. And then this whole story starts happening, right? But then you hit that pattern interrupt, and you say, okay, and then you come into the present moment.
What you just did is the second thing of Eckhart Tolle's teachings that's been really powerful for me, is the like thoughts that you were just saying. That's all up here, like the spiraling thoughts. And when you just took that breath, that pause, and then breathe out, it's that drop down to the heart space, and it's more of a feeling then. And he talks about how that is the pathway through fear, is dropping from the headspace into the heart, and really being with what's there in the heart. Like maybe it's, it's emotion, it's fear, insecurity, not wanting to be rejected, and sitting with that and allowing that to be there. And then that's kind of the pathway through.
I got chills as you said that. Like it makes so much sense. And, I've done meditations where you breathe in love and air and kindness into your heart. So you breathe in love and you release fear.
Yeah.
Right. So like, that's kind of the opposite. Like you said, you're coming to your heart center, which of course is like where love and kindness resides.
Yeah.
It gets rid of that fear, or at least slows it down a lot more. And saying that I can see why you like breathe in love, release fear. That's really cool.
Yeah. That's nice.
Do you plan on leading any more of these classes, or what's your, I want to go back to this, of course, but I'm curious right now, like what's your next agenda? What's up for you? What are you doing right now? And then what's up next?
So right now I'm in a transition space. So I was running an online nutrition business, and we've decided to sell that business. So now I'm in this kind of transition period where I'm resting and taking a break, because it has been an intense couple of years, which has been really great, awesome learning experience. And now it's like, okay, let's reset, figure out what's next. So I'm very much like an achiever. Like I want, I think the day after I was done, I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? But I knew I needed that break and reset. So what I'm doing now is just kind of taking on projects and seeing how they go. And not, in a couple of weeks or a month, I'll get more serious of what my path is. But right now I'm doing a mind detox. I actually just finished it yesterday with a friend of mine. She's doing like a health challenge, and I added the mindfulness component. So I did a little mind detox, and I'm thinking I'm gonna put that into a website and invite more people to come through and do that, and just kind of see where that goes. But my thought is that I want to help compile like the different teachings that are out there, and on a certain topic, and help like guide people through common challenges we experience in day-to-day life, and put that in some kind of format, whether it's a blog or, I don't know, a group type setting. But that's my strong suit, and why I really love leading the mindfulness group, is because I can, pull in a lot of different things from different people and put it together in a interesting way.
Yeah. It's so, this is really interesting that you're talking about this, because I had somebody that I just talked to yesterday. I like to group my podcasts and then release them week by week.
Yeah.
And they're in a transition phase too in their business career and life. And that's the first time that's happened. And now this is the second time in a row. And I don't know if it's like the universe and the everything going on with the coronavirus or whatever that's creating like this wave of, okay, let's really check in with ourselves, see what I really want to do next. I've been really, same story, right? Crush it. He did a startup. So he's been, going 60, 70, 80 hours, 90 hours a week. And then the startup failed, unfortunately. So now he's like, I'm just going to take a 1 month sabbatical.
Yeah.
And and you said something very similar, and I have not come across that in all my conversations yet. So it's great.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I think it's important, especially like high achievers.
Yeah.
We need breaks too.
Yeah. I had somebody on that was either somebody on or somebody I was talking to that talked about how important the doing nothing is. I think it was Rob DeBay. How important doing nothing is compared as it is to do something. Right. So the high achievers that want to keep going, like that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you realize that there's an opposite to that, that's just as important. Because doing something and going like gung ho, that wouldn't be a thing unless do nothing was a thing also.
Right.
So if you're not balancing them, you're going to be completely misaligned with yourself, the universe, your body, your health, everything. Right. Especially that. Yeah. So what can you do as a detox? Sorry, I wanted to go to that. I'm curious. You said the mental detox, I think you used. What is what is that? What is consists in that?
Yeah. So I was thinking about how to do kind of a mini version of the MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Cool.
And have it focused on the things that commonly like clutter our minds and distract us and drain our energy. And so that's kind of the mind detox part of it. So I did 4 sessions. The first one was on getting present. The second one was on difficult emotions and how to manage difficult emotions. The third one was on overwhelm and fear. And then the last one, which I just did yesterday, is on communication and conflict.
Communication and conflict.
Yeah, that's a really common one that we spend a lot of energy on. I don't know if you've ever had like, a conflict with someone and then you're having like a dialogue in your head of like, well, if he says this, then I'm going to say this. And then, you like are replaying, you're preparing, you're like angry and, it wastes so much energy. And there's ways to communicate during conflict that actually bring us a lot closer together and help us understand ourselves better and understand the other person better.
Yeah,
so I think that was an important one.
Yeah, this is so like, first off, again, for people listening, I love when somebody, I just love it, takes something they've learned, like in the big picture of things, like yourself, Erin, and then you say, okay, these parts resonated with me. I love talking about these parts. Let me create something that's truly passionate and right from the heart to share with others that resonated with me, because you can't share and create something and be as impactful as you want to be unless it really is true to yourself. Yeah. Right. So that's awesome. So cool. Incredible what you're doing. I hope that you do this more. I hope that I'd love to be a part of it too. Like join, like not with you, but like take it. And also to go with what you're saying, I'm reading a book, Jason Campbell, I believe. I can't remember the author, but it's called Nonviolent Communication.
That's what I talk about.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
Michael Rosenberg.
Right. Rosenberg. That's who it is. Yeah. Michael Rosenberg, Nonviolent Communication. I'm like 3/4 of the way through it. It's so eye-opening. It is like amazing. See, so I'm officially a meditation teacher. I don't know if you know that.
No.
Yeah. So I just graduated on Sunday.
Yay, congratulations.
Thanks. So I have like the certificate, whatever. I haven't even posted it on my social yet, which I don't know why, but
what did you do your certification through?
So David G.
Okay.
He's on Insight Timer. Are you familiar with him at all?
Yeah. Yep.
So, and part of our course was nonviolent communication. So, all these different courses that are out there in creation, they're all intertwined and they all share the similar message, but coming from what they, like what you're creating, right? Mm-hmm. And it was 125-hour through a local company called Breathe Yoga. Mm-hmm. And so it was called the Breathe, David G. Breathe Yoga meditation teacher training. And I got 125-hour certification for being a
Awesome.
meditation teacher. It was really great experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the things we learned was nonviolent communication, and it's so eye-opening to like think about. Ooh, I've been very, very violent with my, and I still am. Like I catch myself still. Like I had a conversation with my brother the other day, and I'm like, I'm choosing to be violent. I don't even want to go to the nonviolent. Like I literally like knew I was making the choice not to.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I was like, oh, I left toxic residue in that conversation. I wish I went the nonviolent route.
Me and my boyfriend had a similar experience. Recently, we were working through something and we're both learning about nonviolent communication and practicing it. And I don't even remember what I was getting angry about, but I was getting angry about something. I was like, can I just share my judgments right now? Like, you're not supposed to share your judgments. Or like, I really want to tell you how wrong you are. And he's like, yeah, just spit it out. Just tell me. And of course I like told him a couple of them and he's getting defensive. I'm like, see, this is why this doesn't work. This is why we're not supposed to share the judgment part.
It's so good. And it's something that it's not something that you can just read and be like, oh, okay, now I'm a nonviolent communicator.
No.
And
Yeah,
even,
practice.
yeah. And even you, like, what's cool about this teachings that you do is this is an ongoing teaching. So somebody could take this that you create 30 times.
Yeah.
And still get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with meditation, right? Like you can't just do it 5 times and all of a sudden now you're zen and you're peaceful and you don't have stress and you know how to handle. No. Same thing with working out. You can't work out 5 times and then be jacked.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Or watch a webinar about working out and then all of a sudden you
know everything.
Yeah. It's the same. For some reason we think that though with like the personal development and mindset stuff, like we think we can read a book on it and then we've got it. And that's why I love like the MBSR approach, because it is very specific, like action based and tools, and like, use this tool for the next 5 days, so that's helpful, because without the practice, I mean, you can just focus on presence for a year and only focus on that. And if you're actually practicing it, like you could have profound changes in your life. You don't need to read 8 books about mindfulness,
Yeah, that's really great, like perspective, 100%. Even like you took the MBSR course twice, and the second time you took it, you're probably like, oh, I'm so glad I took this again. I forgot about that. I forgot about that tool. I forgot about being able to use that. And
yeah, exactly.
I think that's just what's so cool about life. Like we can always learn something, always refresh or reiterate something that we forgot about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a continual practice. Like there's not an end destination, really. It's all about fulfillment in our lives and enjoying our lives. And this is a tool to help us on that journey. But, if we put down the tool, then it no longer helps us anymore. So we have to keep practicing.
You know, it would be really cool, Erin, is if all of our leaders of all these different organizations and worlds used MBSR or any sort of mindfulness technique daily. It would probably be in a lot better space than we are right now.
Yep. And nonviolent communication. Yeah. Marshall Rosenberg talks about how he goes to different countries that are, at war, have some kind of conflict going on. And he talks about how he finds common ground with them and actually helps them repair and get past their conflict. And it's really interesting. And people just want to be heard and respected and loved. And it's just the root of it all. And we get caught up in all these other crap that gets in the way.
So, yes, 100. Yeah. One of the things that I'm learning as that relates to what we're talking about is how like you can't change your outside world to make yourself happy. Like really the only way to relieve your stress, relieve your be happy, be more loving, get more love, make more money, anything like that, you have to go inside, like create yourself, like not even just fix, because there's nothing wrong with us, but just unpack and and this is exactly everything you're talking about right now.
Yeah. And I think learning how to self-soothe is a big part of that. And we weren't really taught that, most of us weren't really taught that growing up. We weren't taught how to deal with emotions and anger and sadness so I think a lot of it is teaching us how to self-soothe and then approach the outside world or whatever challenges we're experiencing.
Yeah. What do you mean by self-soothe? What do you mean by that?
So instead of being like, so say like I have my feelings hurt or something and I might be reactive or do something like expect my partner to fill that need or void or something, whatever I'm experiencing. Instead, I can fill that within myself. I can turn inwards. They call it in MBSR, talk about turning towards your emotions. So like turning towards and looking at like, okay, what am I experiencing right now? And then there's different techniques for self-soothing, different tools. One is called RAIN, but part of RAIN is you put your hand on your heart and you say something like that. N of RAIN is nurture. So you say like, it's okay, sweetheart, or I love you. And you just give yourself love and fill yourself up. And then you're able to, interact with other people, but we don't need other people to do that for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And to go back to nonviolent, because I'm sure people listening are like, wait, what is this nonviolent stuff, right? And this isn't like, we could have a 3-hour podcast on nonviolent communication. So I'll give and I'll let you say something about it too. But what comes to mind is I read a relationship book a little while ago, and they talk about mirroring. Have you heard about the mirroring effect? So that is a simple version of nonviolent communication where somebody expresses something to you, somebody else says something to you, and you say, so what you're saying is, and then repeat what that person says. And then with nonviolent communication, what do you do then? You attach like a feeling to it.
Yeah. So a big part of nonviolent communication is understanding the underlying feelings and needs of the person or of yourself. And there's kind of like 5 steps. The first one is observing what happened. The second one is acknowledging all the thoughts and judgments that you're having about that thing, about how terrible that person is or whatever. The third one is identifying the underlying feelings that you're having with the experience. The fourth one is identifying your specific needs. And then the fifth one is it's the resolution step. It's strategizing around how to fill those needs. So yeah, a big part of it is being able to articulate that, but you skip step 2. You don't tell the person all your judgments about them and all the thoughts in your head about them. You just tell them 1, 3, 4, and 5. And you also help them uncover what are their needs and what are their feelings around this. And then kind of strategize together on how to meet both of your needs. It's not one or the other, it's both. But the important part, like you said, is giving each other space to share and listen like in a deep way to the other person and reflect back and ask, let them get it all out before you like chime in or want to change the direction. And so, yeah.
Empathy and compassion have a lot to do with
Absolutely.
it completely. And it's hard. It's like, one of the things that I struggled with when I was practicing and you could probably maybe relate to this, but there's a list of like emotions, and then there's a list of, they aren't emotions. They're called like, what are they called?
Feelings and needs,
emotions, and then things like I feel attacked is not an actual emotion or feeling or need. It's a projection. That's what it is. These are projections. There's a huge list of projections, and so when I was like trying to practice this, I was just using projection after projection. I'm like, wait, that's not a feeling. Oh, wait, what is it feeling? And then there's like this. It's a very it's not, I don't want to say complicated, but it does, if you really want to get good at it and be a nonviolent communicator and really take yourself and the people around you to the next level, like you said earlier, just do learn presence for a year. Just practice that. Practice nonviolent communication for a year and nothing else, and you could just change. Everything in your life will change.
It'd be huge. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of like you're in your head too a little bit when you're first learning it. Like, okay, step 1. Okay, now don't say step 2. So then step 3. And like, wait, that's not a feeling. So you're like kind of awkward in how you're talking. But
So awkward.
With my boyfriend and I practicing it, it kind of adds some humor to it because I like will be stumbling through and like then we start laughing and it just adds some lightness to whatever we're talking about.
How'd you get him on board with it? Because both of you guys would have to say, okay.
Yeah, he actually he got really interested. I had heard of it through mindfulness and I kind of like looked into it and we talked about it as a group, but he heard about the book through the Tim Ferriss Tools of the Titans.
Okay.
And someone said it's one of their favorite books. So anyway, he decided he wanted to read it. And then I was like, oh, I want to do a deeper dive. And I actually found there's this YouTube channel, Cup of Empathy. And she's an NBC trainer. And she does a really good job with going through it. And she'll do like live examples with people from her family or with her partner. And
yeah, because I'll tell you what, watching Rosenberg videos are very dry.
Yeah.
It's hard to like, okay, he's just a very chill, dry individual. Like whatever, it's fine. So this one has a little bit more pizzazz.
Yeah, she does for sure. I agree. I tried to watch. He has like a 3-hour training on YouTube, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't watch this. He's great. You can tell he's like a really kind-hearted person. It's just like maybe not his strongest suit of his presentation skills, or maybe it just doesn't resonate with me.
Books are good for him. Totally.
The book is awesome. And her channel is awesome.
Cool. I'll check it. Cup of Empathy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I love that name too.
Yeah. And she's creative.
Yeah.
And like I've said this, I think before, but I realized that I was never able to give empathy because I never actually could feel it because I never myself, right? So I never felt it. So how would I give it to somebody else give empathy if I never actually even could access it?
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest parts and it's hard, I mean, especially as a male that grew up and was very, whatever society said, I was like, okay, womanizer. Okay. That's what I'm supposed to do. Oh, only have anger. Oh, okay. That's what I'll do. Only, and so anyway, unpacking that is allowing me to be better at empathizing, and I'm going to check that channel out. That's cool.
Yeah. I'm curious. I wonder if men have more of a challenge with that than women. I'd say for me, it's the opposite. I'm like very much an empath. So that can be challenging for me because I feel other people's emotion like very strongly. So I have to create boundaries for myself. But yeah, I'm curious, like are you feeling more empathy now, and where are you with that?
Well, Erin, so yeah, look, as a male, especially the generation we grew up in, it was like, oh, toughen up, you're fine. And I know women, females got that too, but more males, right? Toughen up, you're fine, stiffen that upper lip kind of thing. And so like, it just got driven out of us, the idea of touching into our emotions, and you can't have empathy if you're not emotional. Like it's impossible. Like I didn't cry for the first 34 years of my life. I was told, don't cry all the time. Don't cry. Like, what are you doing crying? Toughen up, like that kind of mentality. So to learn to have that and create that, it's very uncomfortable. So even when somebody started having empathy with me, like a female, like of course, who was from it would start like having empathy, and I started having it, I would push it away and be like, ew, like no, uncomfortable, gross. What are you doing, you weirdo? Like that. And that's so much of that happens in society. So to answer your question is, it has been something that, and I'll tell you what, the first thing that happened was Tony shook it out of me big time during his date with Destiny 7 days. And then from there, I had to keep cultivating it, right? keep unpacking it, keep diving in, keep learning it. And that's what's important. And that's an ever growing process, just like you're doing, you're saying like you can't, it's an ever changing process.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if this is true, but I believe that we all have it in us and have the capacity for it. It's just, expressed at different levels for different people. And like you said, impacted by how we were raised and what we were told. And, once, like with Tony Robbins, he just tears you open, like everything comes out, all the emotions and everything. And then he helps you like piece it back together so you can walk out of there, so I wonder if, it's just like, for a lot of people, it's like closed off and tucked away somewhere. And like, there's some label of like bad or weak or, and without exposing that. And like you said, continually working on it, it can be really hard to access.
Yeah. And when you do, like I've realized how much I've missed out on by not experiencing full range of emotions. And trust me, I am still learning like big time. It's not something that just opens up overnight. Right.
Yeah.
So I realize how much better that is, how much like more fulfilling life is, how much more you're able to contribute to society by actually, having good conversations and tapping into it instead of conversation about sports and I'm even reading right now. I got my Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed. Did you read that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So, it's a female written book. So it's like all directed towards women. But I thought it would be a great, way to see what you guys have gone through, different perspective from what like I've gone through growing up in society and what they push on you and the emotions and everything behind it. So yeah, I
think I should read it.
Have you heard of it?
I haven't.
Oh, okay. So my wife's a huge Glennon Doyle fan. Like if I'll ask you, if there was one person, Erin, that you could have dinner with to like learn something from, dead or alive, who would it be?
Probably Oprah.
Oprah? Yeah, totally. I love it. She's definitely up there on my list, but she would be, Catherine's, my wife, would be Glennon Doyle. Right.
Okay,
And she just,
yeah.
And this book was released. Yeah. It's really good. Untamed. And it's a quick read too, because it's short chapters and kind of memoir type book. But Oprah, huh? That's neat.
I just love Oprah. Yeah. In so many ways. I've recently kind of reconnected with her with her Super Soul Sundays. I love her Super Soul Sundays.
Yeah. On Spotify, you listen to it?
No, on YouTube. I watch it.
Oh, you watch them? Okay.
Yeah, I watch interviews. Yeah.
Oh, I have to start watching them. I only listen to them. Cool.
Yeah, they're so good.
Yeah. And again, I just constantly learning, constantly evolving, growing. It's just so fun. Like I love it. I'm almost kind of overly obsessed with it. So I probably should relax a little bit, but
yeah, that's awesome. I think one thing I heard is we tend to read books on things that we're already good at. Like we tend to read self-help books on things we're good at. So I think that's really cool that you're reading Untamed and, just challenging your boundaries, going outside of your comfort zone and
listening to White Fragility right now because of what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Are you tapping in any educational sources right now in that?
Yeah, I watched 13th and I did some of my own like researching on it and talk to friends about it. So that was pretty much all of last week for me, is just diving into that and the emotions around it. For me, it was a very like emotional experience, like exploring my reactions and emotions. And so that was what I spent a lot of my time on. Yeah.
I like that you said that, because that's what like I'll hear something as I'm listening to this 6.5 hour, audible for White Fragility. And I'll start to feel like certain emotions come up, defensive,ness or like or just like openness or whatever it is. And I try to sit with it and realize, wow, I can see how this has been affecting me and why I haven't been as open or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you recommend watching that documentary?
13th? Yeah.
Okay.
It's really well done.
Cool.
And really, really helps give some framework on like the history of racism, and yeah, it's good.
Nice. I'll have to tune into it then.
Mm-hmm.
This conversation was good. It went all over the place. I like it.
I know. I love, like, this is my favorite thing to do, is talk about these things. So.
Yeah, I love it. So sometimes when you're a podcast host, you want to try to keep like a direction and but then at the same time, like your heart wants to just go in a million and just have a good conversation. So it's a struggle, like in my mind sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, and with you, I could probably talk for like 6 hours about things. So I was trying to direction it. So it's almost an hour here, and I like to keep it just about an hour. I want to ask you what you would ask yourself, or not ask yourself. What would you tell your 18-year-old self if she was wide open eared and would listen? What would you tell her? What would you let her know?
What would I tell my 18-year-old self? Yeah. I'm in trouble like putting it to words. It's something around like, so one thing that comes to mind is you are loved. And there is something that my dad taught me, that I don't need to receive love from another person to be full of love. Because I was having trouble with a relationship. I was in a 7-year relationship that had ended and was heartbroken. And he realized, he was like, you're not loving yourself and filling yourself up. And you're relying on like this person or these other people to fill you up with love. And you can feel it. You're already loved, and you can fill yourself up with love. I think that's what I would say.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. That's great.
That's a great question.
Thank you. That's a good thing to tell our 19, 20, 21, 35, 45, 65-year-old self. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. Every day.
Our everyday self. That's good.
Yep.
So you like write it and put it on the mirror in your bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, I'll stop here. Thank you.